This is macOS Ken.
Teeny tiny software news. Meta makes new waves in the MR space, and Season 2 of Shrinking is coming soon. It is Friday, the 27th of September, 2024. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from macOS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSCan. Small software updates to start us off today. First, a piece from Mac Rumors says Apple has released new firmware for AirPods Pro 2. Those are the AirPods that will eventually act as hearing testers and, if needed, hearing aids. This firmware will not do that on its own, since the functionality is not built into iOS 18 yet. Still, the piece says Thursday's firmware update could potentially lay the groundwork for those capabilities ahead of the associated iOS 18 update. Speaking of which, another piece from Mac Rumors says Apple is prepping the release of iOS 18.0.1 that's based on the site spotting the OS in its own website analytics. This one is not expected to bring any new features, unless you count squishing bugs as a feature. According to the report, the issues that could be addressed with this update include touchscreen issues affecting the iPhone 16 series and some older models, an iMessage bug where a shared Apple Watch face can cause the app to repeatedly crash, and iPadOS 18 bricking some iPad Pro units with the M4 chip. Mac Rumors anticipates iOS 18.0.1 and presumably its iPadOS counterpart to be out by late next week. Did you know there's still a version of iTunes for Windows? Well, there is, and it got a security update recently. A piece from 9to5Mac says Apple on Thursday published the security content notes for iTunes 12.13.3, which was actually released to Windows users a couple of weeks back. The piece says the update addresses a single exploit, one that let a local attacker elevate their privileges. From a problem fixed to a problem that may need fixing, Apple Insider is hearing complaints from macOS Sequoia users about USB-C ports kind of fritzing. Citing reports on Reddit and on Apple Support Forum, the piece has seen such issues reported as drives and chargers plugged into USB-C ports of a MacBook not being detected or taking a long time to become usable, and USB flash drives not being recognized. They simply do not appear in disk utility at all, according to reports, meaning they aren't even mountable in the current state. Based on the user complaints, the issue is affecting not only MacBook Pro, but also MacBook Air and iMac. It's also said to be hitting Apple's M1, M2, and M3 processors. P says it's unclear whether Apple is aware of this issue. Look for the mixed reality, extended reality headset space to grow big over the next few years. That is the advice from market tracker IDC. The firm issued a press release while I was out last week, calling for headset shipments in 2024 to fall a tiny bit, though the reduction in shipments of 1.5% could almost be read as flat. Starting next year, though, boom goes the dynamite. The firm is looking for growth in headsets of over 41%, thanks to new tech and more affordable devices. According to the release, the firm expects the industry will grow from 6.7 million units in 2024 to 22.9 million in 2028, with a compound annual growth rate of 36.3%. And if you think that growth is coming first from Apple, do as Aerosmith suggests, dream on, dream until your dreams come true. Yeah, Meta made an announcement this week that could put me on the horns of a dilemma. Engadget says the Facebook parent company used this week's Meta Connect to announce a budget-friendly Quest 3S. According to the report, the headset features the same Qualcomm Snapdragon XR2 Gen 2 processor as the Quest 3, 8 gigabytes of RAM, enough to easily handle high-powered games and experiences, the same full-color pass-through as the Quest 3 for mixed reality apps and games, a refresh rate hovering between 90 Hz and 120 Hz, 2 built-in RGB cameras to make the color pass-through stereoscopic, 4 VGA cameras for hand tracking and controller tracking, and it ships with the same controllers as the Quest 3. Downsides? Well, the images and displays aren't as sharp as the Quest 3, which are nowhere near as sharp as Apple Vision Pro. If you want to be budget-friendly, though, you have to come in on a budget. Engadget says the device seems to be using the same Fresnel lenses used by the now discontinued Meta Quest 2. The field of view is also slightly reduced when compared to the regular Quest 3 headset, according to the report. Meta is also saving money on storage. The Quest 3 starts with 128 gigabytes of storage, though there is a 256 gigabyte model available for $100 more. So how budget-friendly is budget-friendly? The Quest 3S starts at $300. If you're keeping score at home, that is less than 10% of the starting cost of Apple Vision Pro. Of course, the one you really want is the one with twice the capacity. That would be $400 for the 3S with 256 gigabytes of storage. But here's the thing. As part of this week's Meta Connect 2024 presentation, Meta dropped the price on the 512 gigabyte Quest 3 from $650 to $500. And this is how you end up going from an iPhone 16 to an iPhone 16 Pro Max. Well, the next one's just a little bit more, and the one after that's just a little bit more than that one, and, well, probably I'm going to need a case, too, and, yeah. Orders are open now. The Quest 3S is set to ship on the 15th of October. I gotta be honest, I don't have a disposable $300 to throw at this thing right now, and I certainly don't have the $500 for the one I would actually want. And I'm mostly glad about that since I'm still 100% distrustful of Facebook. Yeah, I know it's Meta now, but it grew from Facebook, and fruit rarely falls far from the tree. But if I had $500 and change to throw at this thing, I would be on the horns of a dilemma. Now, it could just be coincidence, but on the heels of the Quest 3S announcement, every Apple news site that's still in business ran a story about what Apple might do to make a spatial computing headset that is both cheaper and less expensive. The drag? All these stories were based on a piece from Digitimes. Still, it is supposition we've heard before. Apple Insider wrote up the report. That has Apple accepting displays from Japan Display Inc., or JDI, with a pixel density of 1,500 ppi. That is significantly lower than Apple Vision Pro's nearly 3,400 ppi. According to Digitimes, reports suggest that after receiving the OLED sample from JDI, Apple is considering developing a budget MR device. Perhaps hedging its bets, Apple Insider notes that Digitimes has a strong track record for its supply chain sources, but a significantly poorer one for the speculative conclusions it draws about Apple's plans. Tends to be why I avoid them. But the announcement at Meta Connect seems to have put Apple's mixed reality play back in the spotlight, and not in a comfortable way. Barron's ran a piece on Thursday that had Rosenblatt securities analyst Barton Crockett saying that Meta is making a better call than Apple in his estimation and trying to lean into a more price-sensitive consumer in this area. As for what he thinks Apple should do, Crockett says Apple should just press the reset button and put the whole idea of these big face computers aside and do something that's a lot more light touch, and it's like the glasses that Meta's coming out with. I think that's the most likely winner in this category over time. For the record, I think that's partly crazy talk. Apple makes iPads that start at $329 and Mac Pros that start at $1 under $7,000. They can work both ends of the spectrum. That said, I take Crockett's point that the more consumer-friendly end should not be ignored by Apple. As for the glasses that Meta's coming out with, yeah, about those. One of the things Meta showed off this week was something a lot of us were hoping Apple Vision Pro would be. Before Apple announced Apple Vision Pro. Mac Rumors had Meta showing off the most advanced pair of AR glasses ever made, only Meta will not be making them. Not in real numbers, anyway. Called Orion, the piece has Meta saying that the augmented reality Orion looks and feels like a regular pair of glasses. Alex Heath at The Verge says they look almost like a normal pair of glasses. Meanwhile, Daring Fireball's John Gruber says Heath's assertion stretches the meaning of almost to a breaking point. Gruber says the frames, super chunky, and the lenses, thick, prismatic, at times glowing, are conspicuous. He's not wrong, but the things do seem pretty amazing. Mac Rumors has Meta saying that Orion has the largest field of view and the smallest AR glasses form to date. The field of view unlocks truly immersive use cases for Orion, from multitasking windows and big screen entertainment to life-size holograms of people, all digital content that can seamlessly blend with your view of the physical world. Mac Rumors says Orion includes built-in contextual AI that is able to sense and understand the world around the wearer to anticipate and proactively address the wearer's needs. And The Verge says they cost $10,000 per pair to make. To make. As Meta's executives retell it, says The Verge, the decision to shelve Orion mostly came down to the device's astronomical cost to build, which is in the ballpark of $10,000 per unit. Most of that cost is due to how difficult and expensive it is to reliably manufacture the silicon carbide lenses. When it started designing Orion, Meta expected the material to become more commonly used across the industry, and therefore cheaper, but that didn't happen. While Rosenblatt's Crockett is wrong about these being glasses that Meta's coming out with, The Verge isn't completely correct about Meta shelving Orion. While that site puts the number of pairs of Orion at about 1,000, the Mac Rumors piece says Meta is providing its employees and select external audiences with access to Orion so that it can use the data to learn, iterate, and build toward a consumer AR glasses product line. To me, that also feels like a thing toward which Apple is heading. But how it gets there and how long it takes remain to be seen. And finally today, an Apple TV Plus trailer that almost makes up for the Cupertino company canceling Time Bandits. No, I'm not planning on getting over that. Thanks for asking. The service issued a press release Thursday with a second season trailer for the comedy series Shrinking. If you've not seen season 1, the release says Shrinking follows a grieving therapist who starts to break the rules and tell his clients exactly what he thinks. Ignoring his training and ethics, he makes huge, tumultuous changes to people's lives, including his own. Jason Segel plays the grieving therapist. Harrison Ford plays his very cranky mentor. Other returning cast members include Krista Miller, Jessica Williams, Luke Tenney, Michael Urie, Lukita Maxwell, and Ted McGinley. Also turning up in the trailer were Wendy Malick and Ted Lasso's Brett Goldstein. Goldstein actually co-created Shrinking with Ted Lasso co-creator Bill Lawrence and series lead Segel. The 12-episode second season kicks off with the first 2 episodes hitting Apple TV Plus on Wednesday, the 16th of October. They will run one per week on successive Wednesdays through the Season 2 finale on Wednesday, the 25th of December. As always, you can catch the trailer on YouTube. This week on the checklist, brought to you by SecureMac, 2 disappointments and a heaping helping of worry. We're worried about the upcoming election, though there may be reason to worry less. Disappointments include Apple dropping a lawsuit and bad guys misusing American treasure Tom Hanks. Wondering what all that's about? Find out on checklist number 393, available today at securemac.com/checklist or wherever you get podcasts. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSCan. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media. Online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macoscan.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.